Hello everyone. I CA Anshit Agarwal, Chairman Jhansi branch of CIRC of the ICI. On behalf of the Professional Skill Enrichment Committee ICI, welcome all the participants in today's webcast on managing time and priorities effectively through skills. I welcome today's resource persons CA Niranjan, Paul sir, and the event enablers from the Jhansi branch of ICI and others present over here. About the speaker, CA Niranjan Paul Ji is a seasoned chartered accountant with 17 years of post-qualification experience in a wide range of accounting and auditing matters. He has significant experience in assessing financial reporting implications arising from complex and judgmental matters such as going concern and non-compliance with laws as regulations and experience in handling capital market transactions. He is a speaker in various established platforms, including the Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, set up by the MCA, and involved in providing point of view on emerging issues such as reporting under Companies Act and SEBI listing regulations. He has published point of view on emerging topics in leading publications having national presence and speakers at various forums. Sir, I heartily welcome you to the webinar and will request you to please start your deliberation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Anshit. And I must thank the ICI for giving me this opportunity, especially the Jhansi branch. Uh, I'll share my screen, and Anshit, do let me know if you are able to see the screen.
Right, sir.
It's visible, right?
Yes, sir. Visible.
Okay, thank you. So I think one of the key thing that we are going to talk about today is how we should balance our priorities, and most importantly, how is it that we can put some more time for ourselves, obviously without impairing the quality of work that we do. What we also would like to discuss today is whether balancing priorities is similar to balancing time, right? So is there is some correlation or overlap between time management as well as priority management? Yeah. So with this, let me start with a quote. I think we all like quotes when we um, go to this kind of a sessions. But I found this one liner to be very interesting and very powerful. We all know that that time flies, right? And think that it's a bad news. But what we often forget is that we are the pilot. In our day-to-day lives, we always stress about not having enough time. But what we all know is that every person on this planet has equal opportunity of time. Now, it all depends on that individual. How does he or she would like to manage his time and balance priorities? So, in a nutshell, this line or this one-liner quote is very powerful, and it sets the context really right, which puts you as an individual in the driving seat to steer your objectives on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. So let's start with the introduction. As we all know, in our comparative world, we all strive to be productive, right? It is expectation that we are able to manage our life properly, manage our work in a much more efficient way, and then we also are expected to spend some time with things that we want to do in our own lives. Now, resources by their nature and time especially are always are stressed, right? We are multitasking, we're spending time on social media, we have deadlines, we have conflicting deadlines, we have expectations from ourselves, and also others can have expectation from us, right? So these create this stress on work and life, and also there is somewhere in between called work-life balance. So in today's session, we will like to discuss uh, what are enablers that is available to you on prioritizing your work, your obligation, how you can balance your work and life, and how you can be efficient on an overall basis. Right? So I thought let's start with some obstacles. What are those obstacles that we face every day on managing priorities? Now, it could be because we don't have clear goals. Every day we wake up to say that this is what we want to achieve, but we don't set clear goals. And goals doesn't mean that we have an objective, but goal also means how do you achieve those objectives, right? We might are not we may not be very clear of the outcomes that we want to achieve. For example, we believe that we want to finish this particular task, but what is that task, right? Does it require one people? Does it require a team to sit together? Does it require a subsequent review by a senior person? We may not always be clear of the outcomes that we intend to achieve. Uh, Also, there is a struggle between what's important and what's not important. We generally believe that everything is important, and we believe that everything is urgent. So we probably fail to distinguish between the urgency and the importance of the work. That could also be an obstacle for managing priorities. We may not be able to estimate or realistically the efforts and the responsibilities that might be needed for managing priorities. Procrastination, we will talk about it. We spent time and procrastinating uh, the time that we have and priorities. We might have unrealistic expectations also, right? If something we believe that will take time, we might just visualize that it will happen in a snap of your finger. So all these put together are obstacles in my view when we are managing priorities. One important aspect which I want to highlight is that possibly there is also a lack of planning. We might have a knee-jerk reaction to a particular event or a particular incident, but we don't plan things properly. We may not be planning things properly. Mind you, there is a very old adage that uh, failing to plan is planning to fail, right? I think that's a very interesting quote that we should keep in mind when we wake up every day. We don't need to make everything urgent. Something which can be done with some reasonable period of time can always be handled if we're planning things properly. We also sometimes try to expect too much of ourselves. We don't delegate, right? We believe that delegation will take more time. The other team members may not always react in the same way, the way you would like to react. But what I can also tell you from my experience is that if you have that mindset, you will always be, you know, like an executor mindset. You will never be a leader, right? So also not delegating properly, not planning properly, not setting clear expectation from ourselves and also from the team members, uh, ambiguous goals, uh, combined, I believe, are the obstacles to priorities management. Now, we heard the problems, we heard the problem statement. Now, how can we manage priorities better, right? But before I get into that, what is a priority and what is a priority management versus how is time management, right? I think we generally juggle between these two concepts, but what I can tell you from my experience is both are overlapping. They're interconnected, but they're actually distinct in many ways. So when you talk about priorities is setting what you want to achieve, right? Let's say I want to go from Gurgaon to Noida. That possibly is a priority, right? Uh, Time management is when do you want to reach Noida? Or let's see if I have to travel from Delhi to Bombay, that is an objective, that's a priority. But when do you want to reach? How do you want to reach is more to do with time. So what I want to highlight to all of you is that both are very interchangeably used and very casually used, but they are interconnected, and they mean distinct objectives of everyone. So priorities is setting your goals. Time management is how you want to fix or allocate time out of your daily schedule to achieve what are your priorities. So in a very simple sense, time management is a much more of a granular exercise, setting those very clear time frames or milestones on achieving priorities. So if you keep on achieving those time milestones, ultimately it will lead to achieving priorities. So priority is something, an overarching objective. Time is how do you break those priorities into various key milestones and put a timeline to that. Now, so how can we manage priorities? And obviously in our lives we have multiple priorities. Uh, so in and we'll talk about them in subsequent slides, but on a overview basis, we need to set goals. We need to prioritize our tasks and responsibilities. I want to highlight we're talking about tasks, we're not talking about priorities, right? We should organize, we should manage conflicting expectations, see how we can best use technology to enhance our usage of time. We should also see and gauge which all places where we are where we are still not focusing. We might be spending significant amounts of time on our social media, whether that can be curtailed to manage our priorities. Uh, if you would look at this slide, I think this is we all somehow relate to, be it setting goals, be it setting priorities, be it organizing, or be it to manage conflicting expectations. Especially, I would like to focus on idle time, where we can uh, manage better while we are managing priorities. So first, in case of every priority management, we need to identify out of 10 things, what is that is important for me at this particular point in time. So let's start with setting relevant goals, right? We are faced with multiple priorities. The first question that we should ask is, what should I do first, right? What can wait for a while, right? What really doesn't need to be done, right? So it's more of an introspection. Out of 10 items or 10 phone calls that you would have received during the day, you would need to identify what is it that I should do first. Generally, when I start my day, I would look at where I would be needing to spend more uh, mindful time, or uh, more time where it is complicated, or where it requires much more deliberation. I would generally pick it up in the morning, right? Because in the morning you are more fresh, you have all the energy. So generally, I would pick up a complicated task on the beginning of the day. But again, that task I would not identify at the beginning of the day. I would have probably identified when the day would have ended yesterday. So at the day end, I would have a very clear idea what I would like to pick up in the very next day. So again, probably practical advice that when you start your day, don't try to start by penning down your to-dos. It is always better that when you close your day previously, find out what is it that you want to pick up in the very next day. And when you have that list, let's say you have 5 items, out of that 5 items, I would generally pick up what I should do first. And that generally is what is more complicated or more require engaging or a team discussion. So I would like to generally pick up that first. And why is this bifurcation important? Because you would be able to filter what are actually those urgent items, and what are those items which are may not be that urgent, right? uh, what I would also like to clarify, that these questions cannot be answered if you don't have goals. Let's say in my example of going from here to Noida, from Delhi to Noida, or from Delhi to Bombay, unless I know that I have to go to another destination, I will not be able to answer this question unless I have a goal, right? That let's say if I go to Delhi or go to Noida to attend a meeting or to have a team event, unless I have that clarity in mind, I will not be able to prioritize. Goals, as we know, they describe the destination so that we can decide where we can allocate our resources, where we can focus our time and efforts. So why goal setting important? Goal setting is important because they sort your priorities in order of importance, right? They help you to focus on time and effort that you really need. It also kind of helps you to avoid wasting of time. So my suggestion, first start with relevant goals. What is it that you want to achieve in the very next day? Generally, this is the tracker which I use. There is the action which I need, and I will pen down what is the expected time. I think this to-do list or this goal sheet is important because unless you write down what are the goals, most likely than not, you will not be able to achieve it. If you have to write down a particular goal or a particular objective, there are surveys and have been scientific studies which clearly demonstrate that a task or a goal gets achieved more efficiently or the more likely of it getting achieved if you write them down, if you have a goal sheet. Okay. When you have a goal sheet, you should break them down into actionable steps and achieving it. You should also estimate for each step what is the likely time that you need to have. Now, somebody might use a chart, somebody might use a table, but you might visualize data in a particular way. But ultimately, the idea is to break down the goals into much more granular or smaller steps with timelines. So again, if you would see, I would use the word time here. This is where is time management. Let's say if this one goal, you will have 3 steps. You will break uh, each and every step into based on timelines. That's where time management comes, right? Which I'm sure now it is very clear how is it different from priority management. Now, one key tip which I want to give you is that when you create goals, you should keep SMART goals. And I want to explain what that SMART means. SMART stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timed goals, right? So to be precise, what is it that you want to accomplish? I want to travel from Delhi to Noida. How do you want to travel? Is it through a flight? Is it through a road? Is it through a train? Is it you are going to pick up somebody on the way, or you will be picked up? What is that precise statement that you want to achieve, right? Exactly what you are going to do, how much you are going to do, when, how often you are doing. You have to be very, very precise and a specific goal, right? Again, it has to be measurable. So for example, you will put a time that if I am able to reach from one destination to another in 1 hour, it is it is what I want to achieve. But unless I put a measure to it, I might take 10 hours to reach from one place to another. I will still reach it. I will still meet the goal. But again, is this what I would have liked it? Is it what I would have wanted the goal to be? You should again have a criteria how to measure the outcome of the goal. Again, attainable, right? Whether a particular goal will meet the resourcing criteria or the cost criteria. If not, then maybe that goal is not achievable or attainable. That I think is the third most key criteria. Is the goal relevant? Okay. Uh, does this goal support your interest, your value, your needs and talent? Why am I going from Delhi to Bombay? Is it that I have to attend a seminar? Is it I have to attain one of my team members' meeting? Or is there a personal visit that I'm going to embark on? What is it that, why should I do it? Why is it relevant to you as an individual, right? Why you need that goal, right? And lastly, but most importantly, it should be timed, right? Whether I should be able to achieve for a maximum time of 5 hours or 10 hours, I will put a maximum time cap. So again, it might appear very simple, especially we are always told in our appraisal or in our goal setting process that you create smart goals. I thought I'll just like to elaborate on that, what the smart goal means. It means to be specific or precise. It should be measurable. It should be attainable within your set of resources. It should be relevant to you as a person, something it should add something to you, and it should also be well timed. So, how do you prioritize tasks and responsibilities? I'm sure many of you would have seen this kind of a chart where we talk about high urgency, high importance, high urgency, low importance, low urgency but high importance, or low urgency and low importance. From this four bucket, generally our tasks or responsibility will fall in either of these four quadrant. Now, generally, what is expected is on the first quadrant, which is high urgency and high importance, is where you would fix or focus your attention to, right? And that doesn't mean you don't focus on the rest of the three quadrants, but generally it is expected things which are falling at high urgency and high importance criteria or high importance bracket, that's where you will need to focus time and resources. Now, those tasks could be routine, it could be recurring, it could be a requirement of the leadership. But if you would need to focus your time and productivity, right, on this high urgency and high importance tasks, then these should be attained first. So now let's talk about all these four kind of uh, uh, priorities: high urgency, high importance. Let's assume there's a fire, okay, in the office. It is extremely important that we douse that fire, right? Even it means stopping something that we are doing, right? So it becomes a high urgency and high importance because it is a larger kind of benefit that we'll get when we look at a high urgency, high importance task. So for example, if you are trying to work towards a particular project which will be affecting the entire practice or entire division of a particular service line, right? Let's say you have to come out with some internal guidance, or you have to host a immediate call on a new development about, let's say, a laws and regulation or accounting and auditing requirement, then it becomes a high urgency and high importance task, because unless you do that, the entire practice might suffer. So something which will affect at an organization level, or something which is very important for any other division of a service line, right? That would generally be a high importance and a high urgency task. Now, what are the consequences if you don't do that? The consequences of not taking action would be too severe, right? If you don't update the practice of particular development, particular it is possible that the quality of execution or the quality of knowledge would go down, and hence there could be challenges on account of audit quality or a work quality management, right? But what we also know that we can't always foresee it, but as experienced team member, we should be able to put some kind of a judgment to look at high urgency and high importance task. Generally, what is not expected is that you put an item because it is urgent, right? You don't make a thing to be an urgent thing. So for example, if there is an activity which probably could have done over a reasonable period of time, now you're at the last date, that doesn't make it high urgency or high importance by nature. You have made that to be a crisis scenario, right? I would also sincerely urge all of you to avoid this kind of a scenario, to make thing urgent rather than rather than having safeguards or guardrails to avoid those kind of a crisis scenario. So these kind of tasks are urgent or importance by nature. They don't become urgent because you didn't do it at the reasonable time. Let's talk about low urgency and low but high importance responsibilities. These are the most important tasks because they lead you towards goals, yet they're easy to neglect because the consequences are often not seem immediate. The most common example which I could see here is the fact that I set up health goals. Right? We are just come up from the new year. January is a time when we will always fix up New Year resolutions, where we think that is it high importance, but it is low urgency. So if you would do some surveys, generally the most common goal that everybody will fix at the beginning of the year is to have a good and healthy life, right? But generally we don't follow that urgency over a period of time, right? Because we think that that those uh, are important, but they are not urgent, right? We don't take time out when we have these kind of goals because we don't feel the immediate pinch, right? They are a long-term disruptor. We don't find the implications immediately. Now, what happens is that if you neglect these kind of goals, they have a long-term ramification. It might affect your health, or it might affect your mindset, where you keep on pushing things which could have managed better, and it becomes a crisis kind of a issue, right? If it is a personal goal or a personal responsibility, if you skip these personal activities, it could lead to poor health or increased stress. Okay. Again, what I would like to distinguish is that both are high importance. Something which you feel is highly urgent because the implications are immediate versus the implications which come on a longer term is what differentiate between these two. Yeah. So my, again, a practical advice is that don't create a crisis. Something, if you have health goals, if you want to focus maybe on your passion, right? Do factor some time, do prioritize some time of yours from your daily schedule. Mind you, they both continue to be high importance. Now it is up to you how you want to put the urgency factor. You believe that they are immediate, or they can be deferred to a subsequent period, right? Now let's talk about high urgency but low importance task, right? We all receive our emails or our messages that this is urgent, right? Somebody might stop you on the way to chat about the next football game or a cricket game. You might have received multiple emails in your inbox, and there are 10 people who are copied uh, um, on that email. You are one of those person who's appearing in CCs. It might appear to be a very urgent task, but is it important? Right? There are other peoples who are marked. Are you required to focus your energy, or you're only required to be informed about? So again, a practical insight here: don't make everything high urgent. Try to find out something which will have an immediate repercussion. I think that immediate repercussion is the key word, whether it will affect you or your day immediately, right? Or even though if it affects you today, how important or relevant to you in that particular day, right? If it is not relevant in your scheme of things, it might be urgent, but it might not be urgent for you. It might be urgent for the individual who is asking you for help, but is it urgent for you? If it is not urgent, or it is of low importance, then obviously you would like not to prioritize it as the first item. Lastly, low urgency, low importance, right? So what I have seen is that when we put our things in the quadrant: high urgency, high importance; low urgency, high importance; high urgency, low importance. If we do all that, right, then uh, then possibly, right, many of the things fall in the last bucket, which is low urgency, low importance. And possibly this is the place where I would draw everybody's attention. We find everything to be urgent and everything to be important, but I would like you all to diligently apply these four principles and bucket your work. In my experience, uh, uh, many of our work will fall in the last bucket, which is low urgency, low importance. These might be very high on volume, right? You might have 10 things or 20 things falling in this bucket. But again, from a priority perspective, they might not be urgent or they might not be important. So where you have these kind of a to-do list or a priorities, I would suggest you bunch them together, and these should be the last set of activities where you will allocate your resources and time. So uh, maybe so if I have to give you certain examples, maybe where you want to read something, where you want to focus on a particular thing, where you want to research, okay, uh, where you want to do some activities because they put some steam off from you, right, and they also don't eat your valuable time. Maybe you want to join a food club. Maybe you want to join some club at your office or club at your home. They may not be that urgent. They may be of lesser urgency, and then you allocate your time and resources accordingly. Now, the next challenge could be that how do you identify the work that others could do? One of the very important obstacle that we all find is delegation. At the outset, what I would like to highlight is that delegation doesn't mean abdication. You still continue to remain responsible for the work that you are supposed to do, but obviously you are ultimately human. You are supposed to take the help of somebody else, right? So you should, when you are using the work or taking help from somebody else, what is it that you should consider that when you are delegating work? uh, in my experience, I have seen many people not delegating appropriately to his or her team member. Possibly there is a fear that the team member may not be able to appreciate the nuances of the work, and you might be spending more time in review or correcting or redoing the work of somebody else. But I can tell you from my experience, that is the upskilling that you would need to do. As a leader, you are also responsible for mentoring and upskilling your other team members, and it is very well required that out of your daily schedule, you should be spending time in upskilling and mentoring the teams. And what I can also tell you from experience, that these mentoring activities take time. They take significant amount of time at the initial stages. But what I can also tell you from experience is that the long-term benefit is immense. You not only create a second line of professionals, but you also create a very wider fan following, right? Which ultimately propels you or enhances your presence as a leader. So again, a practical tip: you should delegate. Delegate doesn't mean abdication, but delegation also comes with significant amount of caution. So how would you delegate, or who do you identify to be delegated to, right? So for example, a common 5 or 6 guidelines: identify the correct person, right? Who share the similar mindset, similar skills, interest, and knowledge, right? But all we know that there is a talent crunch which your organization or you as a person might feel, but at least try to find out who has out of the lot who could be the best person from that particular lot, right? Somebody who has shared interest, who share a particular set of skill, or who has keen interest in that particular activity could be your go-to person. What we should also do when we are delegating is to communicate clear expectation. What is it that you expect? When do you expect? Why do you believe that that is important to that person in his or her scheme of things? It is the responsibility of the leader to make that communication very crisp and clear. If it is a complex job, it might involve multiple persons. The person to whom you are delegating might also need to discuss these things with other person. So it is a very much required that that person should lay down a clear path of action. Okay. As I said, delegation doesn't mean abdication. If there is obviously bound to be some clarifications which the other person might need. Be humble and be available for you to spend time when needed in terms of clarification. Next, what I would also like to suggest is don't micromanage. If you have delegated certain work to your team members or any other person in the family, don't every after every 1 hour call him or her and ask what is the status, what is it that you are doing, how you are doing. If you have delegated this to a particular individual, please place some trust in that person, right? You have chosen that person because you believe he or she is trustworthy, right? Because if you do micromanage, then you start losing the respect, and also the other person feels demotivated. So you should respect. There could be differences in work style. For example, if there is a particular work, I would like to generally pick up the time, the work probably late in the night. Maybe I'll start my work maybe at 9 p.m. in the night and work throughout the night. That approach may not be okay with other person. He or she could be an early riser. She could probably wake up 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning and then start executing. But as long as those expectations are met, the expectation that you have set across are clear and are met by the other person, I think it is okay. It is not necessary that everybody will have the same working style. So it is better to have these clarity at first, and to and this will only a motivating factor for the team, and this will also avoid micromanagement. But the side is that you also leave everything at the dispensation of the person. Don't do that also. Do frequent check-ins, but again, apply caution. Be very clear that maybe in a week's time or a periodic interval, the other person should be communicating to you what is the status of that. Again, a fine balance is required from a micromanagement versus a periodic management perspective. So if you are able to identify that particular set of person, if you are able to if you are able to handhold the person when he or she is doing a particular job, if you are able to clarify, if you are able to have a check-in time with them at periodic intervals, I think it will be a good way how you identify the work that others can do. So again, a sheet that I generally use, it's a very simple tracker. The response they need, right? So I think if you again have a tracking mechanism, you would be able to delegate your task more effectively, and you will be able to also identify the right person or specific task that the other person should do. Okay, we'll move on to the next module, which is how do you organize and schedule. We have talked about what we want to achieve, what is the priority, to whom the work can be delegated. Now we move to the next topic on how to organize ourselves and how to schedule the time that we have. Now, I think this is a very common mm, thing that we see in our office. We might uh, have a room, or we might have a cubicle, but we never seem to find things that we need. And those are very small things, right? Be it pencil, be it pen, be it paper clip. For example, I have seen one of my colleagues who can never find a stapler, right? So the idea is that you keep yourself organized. What it does is that it doesn't create unnecessary stress. You know that these are the places where you should go to hunt a particular thing, and you seamlessly are able to access that, be it a document or a paper clip or a pencil or a pen, whatever it is. Similar logic or similar concept also applies to emails. We do get multiple emails during the day. It is important that we segregate them into particular buckets, right? Something which is, it could be based on a date, it could be based on a location, it could be based on a task. At least you filter out of those 10 emails, what is it that should be picked up and in what fashion. Now, the more you organize, as I said, it creates to reduce unnecessary stress. It also helps you in to have a much more calm mind. It also helps you to focus your time and resources in a particular way. Now, if you're not organized, it means that you're losing valuable time. You're actually wasting time which you have maybe stolen from other activity or from other work. So that time is obviously precious, and you're wasting the time in finding out uh, unnecessary things. Now, you might have a good organizational system which you might use. For example, yeah, if you deal with lots of papers, it is better that we have a filing system where we put this paper in order. What I would also like to highlight that there are various digital tools and technology tools that are available, right, which you can also use to help yourself organize. Uh, uh, Now let's see what is the distinction between keeping yourself organized versus disorganized. Uh, re- if you would recognize the way that you are disorganized, the first step is to organize yourself, right? You can't be expecting your team member to do everything right, but if you are not doing in that way, you should be able to practice what you're preaching, right? So how do you keep yourself self-organized? These are the 3 or 4 things which I use, and probably these are the same question that you should be asking yourself to test whether you are organized or not. How easily you are able to find emails. For example, I know a colleague who never used to find emails that I have sent, right? She used to always struggle in a team meeting. So if you are having a folder based on work or based on a individual, and you are able to bunch things together, it would be a good way to organize yourself. Where you are keeping your daily use materials and supply. Is it in your drawer? Is it that you have to always go to a particular place and access those materials? Now, what you are doing when you receive emails? Are you forwarding it to someone? Are you keeping it with you for future consideration, or you are not doing it at all? My sense is that if you have, when you receive emails, you know in the next 10-15 seconds what is it that you would be doing, right? But probably we are hesitant in making that decision. We think that no, maybe I'll find some better time to go through this email in detail and then respond or forward it to someone. My suggestion, again from my experience, is that in that next 10-15 minutes, please make up your mind. Is it that you have to spend your time, or is it that it could be forwarded it to somebody else for their consideration? If it is, I think we know that in the next 10 to 15 seconds, we should be forwarding that to someone. If you believe it should be forwarded, I would suggest that you forward that, because by doing that forwarding, you had initiated the first step of time management. You have managed your time to say that I don't want to spend time on this. There is a other person who would be able to look at it uh, as part of his or her work, and that again goes out from your mailbox. Again, that's a very good way of organizing yourself. Okay. Lastly, but most importantly, how quickly are you able to connect to a particular person? Is it that you are still struggling through your visiting cards, through your contact email, a contact directory of your phone? How easily are we able to find a particular person? So if you would apply these 3 or 4 tests, you will be able to ask yourself how organized you are, right? I would say out of these four, if you have a majority as yes, then I would believe that you would be well organized. Now, what could be those strategies of organizing yourself? You should be able to set your working place and space that you need close at hand. For example, I keep the books which I need to read very frequently just beside my table, right? At the end of the day, when I move out for the day, I make sure that I clean my table. I put my pen pencils in my drawer, and I leave the table clean as I would have got it in the morning. So there's just two things. One, I know certain things which I don't need. Maybe I will trash them, or if I need, then it will go to a particular place, maybe a filing cabinet, maybe, or I have to give it to somebody else. I will hand them over. But if you would do that ritual on a day-to-day basis, you are able to declutter your working space, and obviously the working space becomes much more energized when you open the day in the next day. Next could be that you name your files, be it electronic or be it paper, so they're easy to retrieve. You could be putting them in a filing cabinet, or if there is a OneDrive, you will be hosting them on a cloud server. If you could name them properly, then it is easier for you to retrieve. Emails, as I said, you could be having a folder based on names, based on location, based on a particular priority flag. In your Outlook email box, you have a facility to flag them based on colors, be it red, be it blue, or be it green, and you could use them to identify uh, emails based on importance. Again, as I said, when you get a piece of paper or you get an email, I think you should take immediate steps to decide, is it that you have to work on, or is it that you can give it to somebody else. I would suggest, do not ignore those 10-15 seconds reaction that you are getting when you are reading a particular document or a particular email. You would know in the next 10 or 15 seconds what is it that you need to do with that document. Please do that. I think that would be able to declutter your space and organize yourself clearly. Uh, Again, if you have piling work papers on your table, it is important that you archive them, right? Uh, why is it also important that even from a regulatory standpoint or from a confidentiality standpoint, there is a possibility of data leakage, and you might be held responsible for not storing or not safeguarding confidential information. So if a particular paper is confidential or it has a sensitive information, make sure that it is not lying on your desk, but it is handed over to a particular folder. Again, every day you should be spending some time for a minute or two to see whether there are certain things that is piling up, whether there are certain reports that has been given to you 2 weeks back and you have not worked on it. If yes, would you like to again prioritize? Right. So again, a normal housekeeping or a health check every day, if you would do for maybe 5 minutes or so, you would be able to organize yourself and declutter your workspace uh, to a much more energizing and an engaging working atmosphere. Uh, Next, I think it is a no-brainer. You should be scheduling, right? And when I mean scheduling, schedule everything. If you have to spend some time with yourself, you have to spend some time reading, put that in your calendar. Nowadays, those calendars are accessible on phone or on your Outlook. Both can be synced together. Please use technology and schedule everything that you want to do, right? Let's say you want to go out and meet someone, meet a client over a lunch or dinner, meet some of your family members, old friends who have traveled long way to meet you. Do schedule some time on your calendar. Your calendar should be a scheduler, not only for your work, but also for your personal uh, activities. So what this benefits is that this help you to avoid procrastinations, and also to avoid time wasting activities. Because the moment you say you have a 10 minutes or a half an hour free on your schedule, you will have this rush uh, in your mind that why don't I do some unworthy or unworthy activities which doesn't need time, right? Which just wastes my time. Why don't I go through social media and maybe scroll through various reels, or I could see some, you know, clips that is coming on my social media profile. Again, if you want to spend time on social media, fix up a time, because what I know from experience, that these social media are addictive. You don't know when the time is gonna fly away. Again, there are other technological tools, right? You have tools which will help you to say that this is the maximum time that you have allotted, and this has got over, so you should get away from your phone or from a social media kind of a thing. Again, the idea which I would like to tell you is that you should be scheduling everything in your scheduler, not from a work perspective, but also from your personal day-to-day activities. Uh, Now, it is also important that you have some filter when you are scheduling things, right? When you are scheduling, you must put them in writing. It must not be on your mind. It should be on a to-do list, which is in probably a front of your chair, or maybe a to-do list or a scheduler on your working space. Okay. As I said, you include everything, be it breaks for office time, personal time, or any work-related activities. Again, schedule them in order of priority. You should be arranging them so that the activities that require concentration and energy are scheduled at the times of the day that you are most alert, right? Some people like me are more energetic when they start their day. So I would generally try to have scheduled more complicated tasks or more difficult tasks at the beginning of the day. But again, each and every individual person may decide based on their personality. You might also fix some time for making routine phone calls. For example, you have to schedule certain meetings with somebody else, your senior, or somebody outside the organization. You might like to book that time also in your so you might control many things, but there are many things So as I was saying, that we should be realistic in our planning activity. We may not control many things, but it is important that whatever we can control, we schedule them realistically. We have certain safeguards. We put certain contingencies. It is not that something which will take uh, uh, 2 hours. We have a schedule for maybe half an hour or so, because what it does is that it becomes demotivating for us, and it becomes a deterrent from achieving our goals in future. So these are the few thoughts which I had when you are trying to fix up a schedule. Now, what we also could see is that there could be certain uh, expectation which might be conflicting. So for example, if I have to lay down my schedule for making uh, research, on the same time there could also be a training which might have been scheduled. So now both are important, both are relevant to you also as an individual, but how do you manage conflicting expectations? Uh, it is difficult. I think we should acknowledge that these are not a straight answer. The answer would change based on a scenario, based on the individual work style or personality that we have. But what is also important is to ask certain questions, right? uh, what you should do is that when you have conflicting expectation, you should explain to the other person, right, what are your priorities. So it is you as an individual who should pick what is that activity or responsibility that you would like to shoulder. There is no one person other than you. You have to identify your priorities, explain that priorities to that other person, right? Also explain why they matter, right? Why is it that you want to choose one above the other? uh, because in many scenarios you might have conflicting expectation from your boss, or from a senior person whom it is very difficult to say no, right? So I would advise that you talk to that person, you communicate your priorities, and be transparent enough to be upfront that why one particular activity is being chosen over the other. And I'm sure, being senior leaders or senior professionals, they would be able to appreciate your perspective. And if you would look at from the other side, they also would be facing similar challenges. They also would be managing these conflicting expectations stakeholders. So I'm sure if you are able to communicate and inform them upfront and be transparent, you would be able to manage your priorities in terms of conflicting expectation better. What is also important that you demonstrate that you respect other person priorities. It is not that you are trying to say that the other priority is not important. It is important, right? So do deal with some amount of respect and humility, that the other task continues to be important, and we would be picking up that task when this high priority and high important task gets over. Okay. uh, third uh, third possible option that we need to do is that we negotiate, right? We also say that, and we negotiate with both the person to say that, I might be doing this in a particular frame of time. If you're able to, reduce your time, then maybe I will to accommodate better. If you have that bandwidth or headroom to negotiate, it is always good to negotiate. Then you are looked upon as a solution oriented and accommodative person, and which will create a win-win situation for both. Okay. Now we talked about on how to manage expectations, and on how to manage priorities, how to manage conflicting time. Probably now we will move to the next module, which is to make the best use of your time. Now, how do you manage your time? What is the efficient? How efficiently do you manage time? One thing that is very clear to everyone is that we can't add hours to 24 hours a day. 24 hours is fixed, that is available to each and every living organism on this planet, be it a human sitting in India, or be it someone in another the time zone. But ultimately, we have 24 hours a day. We can't add one single minute to that hour. Now it is up to us. What is it that we can add to our to-do list? What is it that we can remove so that we are not wasting time and we're using the 24 hours in a day in a much more efficient way? Now, before I ask how efficiently you manage your time, I want you to think these three or four sentences which are there on this slide, right? Are you a person who seldom spend unnecessary time using technology? Maybe browsing website, checking my email, socializing with friends, reading blogs. So how do you seldom do these activities? Or are you a person where you always are at ease, right? And you are able and you don't rush things, right? Or are you a person, uh, I when I am something I am working on is finished, I go on to other things. The moment I finish work, I go on to other things. Or are you a person whom you don't multitask, right? Or do you lead to distractions or interruptions frequently? Do you attend meeting on time, right? I think these are three or four practical tips which I thought I will try to pose to you to assess and introspect how efficient are you in time. For me, the most important criteria which I apply for myself about being efficient on time is that do I do I reach uh, a particular place on time? Do I attend a meeting on time? Right? If I am able to do that, I think I am able to efficiently manage my time. Because if I have to schedule a particular meeting, if I have to reach a particular meeting on time, then obviously I would be preparing beforehand. I am not making a thing which is not crisis to be a crisis. So I'm planning better, right? I'm also scheduling things better because I am then allocating or prioritizing other tasks. So it is like a domino effect. If you would fix one thing, the other things will also fall in line. And then also this also helps in efficiently managing your time. Okay. So on this slide, I have tried to put up certain common time wasting activities, right? I'm sure some of us would be able to relate, including me. I am also would able to relate to a couple of them, which is there on this slide. So multitasking, I think we take pride that we are multitasker. We can juggle or we can execute multiple things simultaneously. But what I would like to also highlight and scare you is that there are research which has found that multitasking actually slows you down. It burns you, right? Because you are now working actually on double shift. You are doing two things parallelly. This has a significant effect on the quality of work that you do. This reduces your quality and increases the error rate. So though multitasking is necessary, we do multitasking, but ultimately we should not be multitasking with many things, right? We might do maybe two things together, but again having five six things being worked on at the same time parallelly, I think it is asking too much from you as a person. In effect, what happens is that you start wasting time. You are neither able to focus time on a particular activity, you are not able to focus time on others. And at the end of the day, more likely than not, you would be missing your deadlines. You would be able to you will not you would be able to reach to an outcome which you would not like to reach. The quality uh, of the work, if that is a driving factor for you, you may not be happy with the outcome. So again, multitasking to some level is okay, but again, a very extreme form of multitasking, uh, as research shows, slows a person down, and obviously it increases the rate of error. Now, procrastination. I think we heard this term couple of times in the earlier slides. So let's see what procrastination mean, right? So procrastination is basically creating a crisis. You don't work on a particular thing, you waste time, and you push things until it's the last minute. So it is basically letting things go until the last minute, right? You create a crisis, and which obviously leads to mistakes, substandard results. It also creates a disruption within the team, right? Because the team members don't know who is responsible for that crisis, and this negative attitude or a negative environment gets created within the team members. It is often said that procrastination results from having unclear goals or from concern that you don't do it well enough. Right? It could also be a capability issue, or it could also be a clarity or a lack of clarity on goals. So if you have this kind of a procrastination attitude, that obviously it leads to wasting of time. Again, it could be that doing things more than once, right? You might be doing the same thing again and again because you are not confident of what you are doing. You don't have a proper plan of doing things. For example, you might have to reread a message or a document and think about it again and again and ask people for repeat feedback. If you are doing things, then probably you are again investing your resources and time multiple times, and this again leads to wasting of your precious time. The last could also be doing unnecessary work. Uh, if you have taken up certain task which is not a priority, or which is not immediate, then again it is a time wasting activity. Yes, you are trying to tick off a particular activity, but again, whether that activity needs time now. So the question is whether you should be doing that work now, or it can be deferred later. So I would always also urge to all of you to reflect on this common time wasting activities, procrastination, multitasking, and I also see in my daily life, I'm also trying to find better ways to avoid these time wasting activities. There could be other activities, time wasting activities also. For example, distractions, social media, phone calls, chit chats, right? Continued discussions with about maybe a stock market thing, or upcoming concert which goes on for hours and hours, could be distractions. I would sincerely urge that we avoid distractions from our day-to-day work so that we remain focused and engaged in our activities. Another syndrome which I have seen in people is striving for perfection, or the perfection syndrome, right? People take too much time on making things perfect, right? I don't think there is a perfect world. We always want to be a high quality oriented person. But what I would also like to advise is that don't compromise execution because of perfection. At least you do this start. The moment you start, you will have much more better idea about the challenges on the ground, and it will help to sculpt your strategy, sculpt your work, so that you don't strive at the last moment. I've seen people editing, re-editing a particular document polishing and spending hours and hours on a particular proposal, or while you are preparing for presentation. But what they don't spend time is how will you execute that, right? So my submission to all of you would be is that to is that planning is great, right? Perfection is to some extent great, but the what is the best attitude is to start working. Do not compromise execution with perfection, right? You become perfect as and when you execute. If you don't execute, your perfection will not come out from your outcome, right? uh, Lastly, we don't use technology in certain cases. We are still probably a person who will write down certain things on a piece of paper, and you will never find that piece of paper. So it is always great to use technology. Technology is a very beautiful and a very efficient enabler for all of us. Uh, it it is it could be able to keep track of your time on a particular activity, be it social media, be it meetings, or be it certain calls. I think we should be able to use technology and identify those time draining activities and manage our time efficiently. Now, how can we avoid procrastination, right? First and the foremost is to accept that you are procrastinating, because if you don't accept that you are procrastinating, then you may not be able to find a particular uh, procedure or a particular approach to mitigate procrastination. First is self reflection, that yes, there could be certain spaces where I am procrastinating. Second is to identify and diagnose your procrastination. What is the reason, right? Is it that you're too stressed? Is it that you are complacent, or you are scared of a particular task? Generally, in a task, if a particular portion is complicated, or if it is outside your comfort zone, you start procrastinating, right? What is that task? Is there somebody there who can help you? Okay. Next is, what could be the countermeasure against procrastination? Is there an alternate solution to that fear of procrastination in your mind? Uh, do you use a to-do list, right? That will help you to overcome procrastination, right? Uh, Again, if a task is made up of multiple milestones or multiple small activities, it is always better that we break them into shorter goals. This also helps us to have a much more clearer and achievable goals, smart goals, as we just spoke of, and this will also helps us to keep us more engaged. Yeah. So, so I think if you apply these two or three activities, or throughout these safeguards, you would be able to avoid procrastination. Uh, what I would also recommend, that when you are able to avoid procrastination, you should reward yourself, right? You may like to take a break, go to a particular eating place, spend some time with your friends and families, and uh, and and it should you should be feeling rewarded, right? That you did try to overcome these one of the time consuming habits, right? So again, it is always good to have a pat on your back. Perfectionism, I think we also spoke of being the notion of being perfect and compromising our execution because of this perfection. Again, it starts with tendencies, introspecting that you have this perfectionist mindset. uh, should always focus on big picture, analyze, refrain from self talk, right? You should if you have a particular activity you are passionate about, generally the things keeps going around and around in your mind, right? You should be able to focus on that picture. uh, Again, you should be maintaining high standards, but there should be attainable standards. By this, I don't mean that you accept mediocrity. We all are aware of high standards, right? But again, it should be achievable and attainable. Perfectionism doesn't mean that you involve your entire resources to achieve one particular goal. Seek help, right? If you believe that you are stuck and you are not able to get out of this particular syndrome, you should be able to seek help, right? Maybe from your peers, maybe from your family members who would be able to uh, guide work, right? Again, I find this perfectionism attitude much common, right? Especially in very senior or experienced kind of professionals. But my submission to or advice to all of you would be is that perfectionism would only come out when you execute. So please start executing your plan. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Your execution will make that moment perfect. Yep. Now moving on to disruptions. How do we manage disruptions? I think it is better to keep uh, uh, and identifying patterns. If there are particular patterns that always disrupts you, is there a particular phone call from a particular person who disrupts you? Is there a fellow colleague who will catch you in case of a lunch break, or in case of a coffee break, and you spend hours discussing probably the next concert which may happen in some distant part of the country, or you might be discussing politics, right? For a particular uh, topic. So again, it is important that we find out interruptions, we find out interactions, and we see what are those common trends that is leading you to disruptions. Again, it is important that the moment we identify those triggers, we say no, right? Be polite, but be assertive. Again, that person could be a very good friend of yours, or could be a family member, or could be a senior person in your team. Again, be polite. Politeness always helps, but be assertive. You tell him or her that maybe if you can catch up later. This probably can wait. I may have a particular deadline to manage. Why don't we catch up sometime else, right? So you be polite, but be also assertive that this is not what I would like you to achieve today. Again, there could be certain other extreme measures. For example, you turn off your mobile, you turn off your chat box, you again sit in a very confined space so that you are focused. Well, I have seen people using this kind of an extreme measures, but I have not often found this to be very productive. Because if you refrain yourself from doing things, right, more likely than not, after 5 minutes, you will actually start doing that thing, right? But yeah, I have seen certain other people also who are able to have that focus time for themselves when they turn off these disruptions. Another a possible way is to set maximum time, right? Let's say you have 5 minutes. You will be disrupted only for 5 minutes. If it is the next sixth or seventh minute, you should bow down and politely say that, yeah, my time is up. Then can we do that tomorrow? This helps in managing disruptions in a big way. Okay. Now, what are those strategies that can help you to make best use of time? One is obviously to stop procrastinating. Okay. Now, a reason why you think you are procrastinating, yeah, is to see that think about why you are procrastinating. Maybe you are not sure of what you know, how to do your job, afraid of a particular part of the activity, or you are feeling too stressed or too overwhelmed. Probably you're trying to use that me time to ward off all these challenges. But mind you, these challenges uh, can drain your time and drain your energy. So the best way, which I do when I see myself procrastinating, is to take a walk. Right? Maybe I'll take a walk in the office for 1 or 2 minutes. Go there, pick up a cup of black coffee, and then come back to my seat and uh, get back to work. Right? But it is very important that we are aware that we are procrastinating. So once we are aware, you would be able to stop procrastinating. Again, if you have multiple activities, it is possible that because of this multiple activities, you are procrastinating, right? Uh, I would suggest that you focus on one small activity at a time. Don't get overwhelmed that you have a multiple set of activities to attain, and hence you are not focusing. The moment you have this fear of multiple activities, there is a general tendency that we keep on procrastinating. Uh, Again, reduce distractions. As I said, putting off emails, maximum discussion times, all these things can also help to make best use of your time. We also spoke of doing unnecessary work, right? You might be trying to help a particular junior team member with your in your free time, but is there also another pressing need that you need to cater to? Again, uh, this helping hand should not be able to consume precious time or the required time from your daily schedule. If it is doing so, you would please identify and stop doing that. Okay, I think we did discuss this as well, using technology. Okay, these are a much more good way of enabling. uh, we also attend meetings, right? There are multiple meetings that come up. You are being made attendee of multiple meetings. Is there a way you can avoid, right? Meetings should be objective, it should be focused meeting, and it should obviously be time bound. So it is very important that we know what is the agenda of that meeting. We should not go into the meeting when we don't know the agenda. What is it that idea or the activity you are going to take time? Because mind you that this is the time possibly you could have spent time with your friends, families, or your passion. If you are not, if you don't know what is the agenda of the meeting, most likely than not it will be a waste of your time. You will not you will neither be preparing for the meeting, and for the entire meeting you would be a mute spectator. You would just be a disengaged team member in that entire meeting. So it is very important that we have an agenda for the meeting. The more we have a clearer agenda, you should be able to have a clear planning on what is it that you want to cover in those meetings. Why is this meeting important to you? If it is not, then please reduce the number of meetings that you are attending. That's why an agenda to a meeting is utmost critical and crucial for you to make best use of time. What is also important is that you make a to-do list. Again, a technology can be helpful, where you can help when we can have various tools and strategies to have a online to-do list. Again, this is more like a tracker or a to-do list that I have. uh, Something is to say that you review and update your to-do list on an everyday basis. List all your tasks, note how much time will you take, check off things when they are done. I can't tell you the positive feel I have when I check off a particular item from my to-do list. I think the more to-do list, the more clearly you manage a to-do list, you are able to reduce distractions, you are able to tick off particular item, more positive you become. Yeah, I think technology is a much more clearer enabler. I think we discussed uh, uh, that technology forms a part of my distractions, but they could also help you to manage priorities. There are a wide range of tools that are available to manage our priorities. For example, softwares which tells you the maximum screen time that you have reached, or there are particular cell phones which can tell you that this is the maximum time that you have put on a particular call, or a tablet which there are applications which can tell you to not to go to a particular website if you have breached that time limit. Again, mind you, these softwares are enablers, right? They do help you to create goals, to manage your schedule and to do list, and also to set up your calendar. uh, so again, we use cell phone very often. We can use cell phones to keep your to-do list handy. It is close to our hand and it can be updated very quickly. uh, the cell phone can also be used to get reminders, schedule your task, and retrieve your contact list. Okay, you can also capture ideas as and when it is comes to you. It can also help you to ideate and write down those ideas. And if there is idea that you want to share with someone, technology is a very easy way how you can share those ideas. Now, or a tablet or a computer, similarly you have cloud based applications where your laptop or the tablet is synced, and the data are shared, right? You can receive and send documents very easily. You can also update calendars and schedules of your to-do list. There are also third-party softwares which are available for, let's say, for your meetings or for any other priority activity. So you have visual aids, you have various generative AIs which can help you to prepare for meeting or schedule your meeting, give you much more insights on a particular topic, right? So we are very familiar with many AIs tools that we use. These are available on phone, on your laptop, or they're also available on the web. Some could be free, some could be a paid version. So I would strongly recommend that we use technology to manage our priorities better. Okay. So if I would come to the concluding parts of this session, the final tip which I would like to give all of you is that you break your time into smaller bits, right? Small bits of time, odd hours, waiting time. Break them to what extent possible, right? Generally, we are always scared of picking up a very long kind of a work. But if we are able to break our time into granular and attainable topics, then it is easier for us to manage them, right? Uh, Again, keep yourself organized. If there is an email that has come to you, please decide in the next 15-20 seconds what is it that should be done. Is it that you have to work, you have to forward it to someone, or this actually requires much more greater time? So please flag it. If it is email where it can be forwarded it to somebody else, please do uh, forward that. Again, handling paper, your books, keeping yourself organized, your research material. The more you organize yourself, the more positive the working environment would be, and the more clearly you would be able to manage your stress and priorities. We spoke of automated TIT systems, and there are various generative AIs, various tools that we spoke of previously that are available. Please make good use of these technology. I've still seen people who are writing your to-do list on a piece of paper, and that piece of paper is never found. We have beautiful tools available in our phone, which are free, right? You have a to-do list, you have a reminder, since it is a web-based or a digital-based tool, it is very easy to share that with somebody else. You can also collaborate or mark it to somebody else, assign a particular activity from the to-do list to somebody else. It can create a dashboard for you to give you a status. Uh, Lastly, but most importantly, take rest, right? Eat well, exercise, and sleep well. I think we always rush for our meetings. We skip our food, our meals, our breakfast. Breakfast generally, I have seen a very common miss when we have to go to a early morning meeting. We should be planning our health and prioritizing our health, because unless we have a good health, even though we have a good professional life, we may not be able to enjoy the fruits of that labor. Okay, so again, exercising is a must, eating well is an absolute, and rest is an absolute must, right? Generally, I have seen that many of the professionals have long time sitting on a particular chair, right? So I would suggest that you take frequent breaks, move around in your office, move around in your workspace or at home, so that you stay more alert, and your body is also not accustomed to that boredom. Lastly, but most importantly, if you would believe that if you are stressed, if you are overwhelmed, don't shy away from taking advice. Advice doesn't mean that you are weak. Advice only means that you are asking genuinely for somebody's input, that you are respecting that other person. You are building a communicative culture where you are saying that I need help. Why don't you can you please help me? There is no harm in asking for help. We should always be open to asking as well as giving help, right? It could be in form of support, it could be in the form of advice. But if the moment you feel overwhelmed or you believe that it is getting too stretched, ask for advice. This is not the scenario that you are only going through. There would be other experienced professionals who have gone through, or a senior member who would have experienced this in the past. Their guidance and their experience is definitely that you should be leveraging on. And needless to say, avoid taking too much. As it is there on this image, you could see one person sitting alone with heaps of paper, right? This also means that he or she is not organized, right? But again, avoid taking too much. Limit your boundaries. You should know what boundaries you should not cross, right? uh, um, and delegate your work, right? I would suggest delegate your work. Share your work. Delegation would generally happen with a junior team member, but if you are in the same level, you can also share your work with your peer group. You could jointly work on a particular project. Again, these are small, do's and don'ts that we should do when we are, you know having a very overwhelming or a very critical time. Okay, so I think we are at the last slide, right? I would suggest that you please make a plan. Plan, as I said, is the starting point for everybody's day. Again, we should not be making plan at the beginning of the day. My suggestion would be that when you end the day, you should plan. Allocate in your 8 hours or 10 hours of day, allocate time for each and everything. Be it if you have to pick up your wife from a particular shopping location, or you have to pick up your brother or your parents from a hospital, or you have to buy some medicine for your child. Do do schedule some time, right? If you have to schedule some time for your hobbies, let's say if you want to do a photography or course, or a cooking course, please schedule some time, right? Out of the 8 or 10 hours of your 8 or 10 waking hours, you should be scheduling time or planning time for each and every activity that you want to do, right? The more clearly you manage your time, the more well you reduce your stress, right? And the more well you reduce your stress, the more work-life balance it matters. One trivia I would like to give you is that work-life balance doesn't mean work-life equality. Generally, people try to confuse between work-life balance and work-life equality. When you say balance, balance is an individual prerogative, right? If I am a person whose son would need help in his upcoming exam, probably I will spend more time at home rather than spending time in office. So both doesn't have to be equal. I don't need to spend equal time in office. I'm able, and I don't need to spend equal time at home. I should be able to allocate so much time that both is balanced, right? So balance doesn't mean that it has to be equal, right? It could have its own ups and downs, and that may not be linear. It could be linear for one person, but it may be non-linear for somebody else. So again, if we are able to manage time, if we are able to prioritize our task, allocate resources properly, in my view, it is a very good work-life balance. So with this, I would like to conclude the session, and I would hand it over back to our friends at ICAI. Thank you. So if there are any questions, would be happy to take. There are no questions? Okay.
We are thankful to our today's speaker, C.A. Nilanjan, for deliberating on the various aspects of our professional area. We are thankful to each and every viewers who has watched on this today's webcast. We are thankful to each and every stakeholders involved in this webcast. On behalf of this Professional Skills Enrichment Committee of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, we are thankful to each and everyone. With this, we conclude the today's session. Thanks to all.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Samit ji.